Hello and welcome to our podcast, The Ups and Downs of a Small Business Owner, where we hope to show you exactly what it's like to grow a business. Today I'm here with Jon Manning, charity founder and CEO of Arthur Ellis.
All right.
Hiya. And how would you, let's jump right in.
Yeah.
How would you describe yourself, Jon?
How would I describe myself? Erratic, not very stable, but trying my best.
So I guess if we kind of go to your start,
Yeah.
the start of your journey, wherever that is, where do we start?
Well, we work in mental health, right? So I would say that majority of mental health things start at childhood. So my childhood, I would say things started for me when I was like 5 or 6 years old. So I was first in a children's mental health setting when I was 6. Bit of a difficult time when I was 5. Things happened. Won't necessarily get into it, but we can do if you want. All I remember really from that time was like beige walls, two-way mirror, barren room apart from like tissues on a desk, and people asking me to like talk about what was going on. And I didn't want to because the environment just wasn't comfortable enough. And that's always stuck with me. And I guess that's kind of what has led me now to do what I do and try to improve the settings that therapy sits in, the access mainly to people getting therapeutic support. So I'd say, yeah, probably started when I was like that young.
5 years old, you still picture the room.
Yeah. It was this quite, I don't have a lot of memory from when I was growing up at all, but there's certain things that I do remember, and that sticks in my mind. That kind of beige, barren place that didn't feel open, with people asking me to open up. It was very contradictory, and I didn't. So I didn't talk about mental health for another 10 years or so, until I was 16. And when I was 16, that was the first attempt in my life. And I went to the GP. It's kind of backwards now, if you think about it. Like, you should go to the GP way before trying to kill yourself. But I had an attempt, and then I went to the GP to tell them what happened when it failed. And I thought, I can have a bank account. I can have my own bank card. That means I can go to do these things by myself. I'm a grown up now. But because I was 16, my mum was immediately called, and we went to a reservoir, walked around, had a chat about what happened. A chat about how I was feeling, and it allowed me to open up a lot more about what was going on for myself. And at the time, I don't really remember what was actually going on. Just something wasn't right. It didn't sit right, and life didn't feel right. And this has been sort of a recurring story throughout my life. So same happened again when I was 18. I had an incident with a train. And then when I was 24, I've regularly been involved with mental health services, and I guess you've probably heard of NHS waiting lists and the challenges that the NHS face, and I kind of saw an opportunity to try and make that better. So when I was 20, oh God, how old would I have been? 26, 27, I decided to start Arthur Ellis and try and make things better.
Was that like what you wanted to do as a kid, like start Arthur Ellis, or was that?
No, I think I generally had the whole thing of like, I want to be a fireman and do all of those sorts of things. But I was going to go to university to study prosthetics, so making and manufacturing prosthetics for people and for children and stuff. So I've always liked working with my hands and been involved in science, and I've enjoyed that side of industry, and I thought putting the two together would be a really, really good mix. I loved woodwork, and I still do really enjoy that just in my personal life. And then in school, I was very, very involved in science. I did triple science at A level. So it was double physics, biology, and chemistry. So it was like 6 A levels. And shock horror, I was the only student in the school to choose it. So I was the only one in class, and it didn't really work out very well. It was the first time the school had taught the A level, and I was taught the wrong modules. So I was fine on the exams, but all of my coursework, even though the teacher had marked it high, it all came back as U because it was totally irrelevant for the course. So I was at a point in my life where I was just like, I don't want to do all this again. I did it and resat stuff, but I was kind of done with education. So I got a job. I think it was actually an advert in the paper, shows how old I am. And it was down the road at a Holiday Inn where there was like an open day. So I went along to that and I got a job in sales after doing a presentation and stuff. And that was when I was about 18. And I was fully prepared to go to uni, and I went to visit them and all of that sort of stuff. But because now, after going through a lot of my own therapy and all of that sort of stuff, I realized like going into a new education setting was a bit of a trigger for me. So I was going to visit a university in London. I was on a train, and going to the university set me off, and I lost all my memory. I didn't know where I was supposed to go, what I was supposed to do. Yeah. And then I kind of woke up on a bridge above the train tracks, like, because I just didn't know what was happening. And I was in a real state. So didn't go to uni. That was all kind of disrupted. So the only option was get a job. I had to pay my parents' rent and all of this sort of stuff. So job in sales is what it was.
Don't mind me asking into that. During that, like, so you basically kind of black out, wake up, and you're like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, is somebody there talking to you, or are you on your own, or like?
On your own, yeah. I was just so, I was in London. I didn't realise it was London even. So didn't really know it was London, didn't know what part of London I was in, didn't know how to get back, what I was there for. I know now I was meant to go to the Imperial College to look at it. It was a student open day for the university. And I didn't know anything at all. So I was just completely blank. And the only option that I really thought that I had was to, right, I'll find this car park, it's above the tracks, and I'll jump on. And right at the nick of time, my mum called to see how the open day was going. And I said, I'm not there. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. And then she managed to like talk me through how to get home. And that was a day.
So essentially it was her calling that kind of
Stopped it happening, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's quite an impactful day. And then I guess, well, I spent about 2 weeks in a hospital after that in Aylesbury. Ironically, it's now flats. But it was a place called the Tyndall Centre. And I was there on like day release to like monitor me basically to make sure that I was okay. And that was, so I had that experience when I was 6 of a child's mental health setting. And then I had the experience when I was 18 of an adult mental health setting. And I personally didn't find it very helpful. I think it was probably because what was going on for me was very much an in the moment thing. It wasn't kind of a prolonged, I wasn't still in that much distress. I was just needed to be monitored. So while I was in that setting, I kind of felt like normal, if that's a okay way to put it. But I was aware of my surroundings. I was aware of what was going on. I was aware of what happened to me. But they just needed to monitor me while my parents were at work, basically, on sort of like watch. So, yeah, after getting out of the hospital and deciding I didn't want to go back to education, decided to get a job. And that's where there was this advert in the paper. There was an open day, presentations, and I managed to land a job. And yeah, it was in sales. So it was very, had to be very outgoing, and you know what it's like, kind of like out there and talking to people and bubbly. And I just got out of a mental health hospital. So it was a real contrast of, that was my first job. No, they didn't know.
You know, you're going into this hustle life, like sales, it's very full on, it's very 100 miles an hour. Does that like, is that all in the back of your mind, like, yes, or do you kind of just switch off and you're like, this is my new mask, this is what?
Yeah, mask is a good way to put it. Yeah, it's you've just got to prep yourself for being someone else for a while, and the journey into work and all of those sorts of things. Like I said it was my first job. It was my first like salaried job. I'd had hourly paid jobs since I was 13. I don't know if that's legal. Is it legal? Probably. Cash in hand sort of stuff. Yeah. So I'd worked since I was 13, and my first job was taking my dad's lawnmower up and down the road and mowing people's grass and stuff like that. Selling window cleaning door to door. And then at 16, I got a job in Marks and Spencer's, working in the warehouse. I juggled jobs from a young age, but this was my first like salaried job, and had to wear a suit and all of that sort of stuff. So it was very much like putting on a mask, being somebody else for a period of time. But I wasn't very good, and I'd lost my job after about 9 months. But there's this, my boss at the time was a guy called Jason, and he noticed that I wasn't very lively and bubbly some days, or majority of the time really. And he got me a vocal coach to be more active on the phone and to project my voice more and all of that sort of stuff. So when I was 18, I barely spoke, and I would mumble into the phone. I'd be very conscious of who was around me, listening in. And he got me a vocal coach in St Albans that I drove to like once a week, and felt like such an idiot, like in someone's living room with a music stand, sort of projecting poems at her. But now, yeah, I readily speak to thousands of people at a time.
More accessible
Mm.
is speaking confidence, and I think private education. The one thing I noticed between private education and kind of public sector is, and kids have confidence, they can talk, they can, you put them in front of a mic in front of thousands, they don't even blink. Whereas you put a kid from the public schools or like the state schools, most or 95% are, and certainly I would say that's one of the things that I would have really, looking back, got a lot out of, is if I could have had speech therapy. Something just to help you stand up and talk.
Yeah.
And
It doesn't have to be that formal. Like, it doesn't have to be like a therapy type thing or seen as therapy. It's like personal development, right? So this person I went to see, they weren't a speech therapist. They were more of a coach. And it was just an opportunity for me to be myself and learn how to get over the nerves of that moment. Once you're speaking and you're 10 seconds in or 20 seconds in, it's all right. You know, the scariness is gone, but it just taught me that fear of what is this uncertain thing that's coming. If you can leap over that little boundary and get into it, then you realize that it's not that scary. And you're right. Like, I think young people in particular, even adults, we're not teaching them that leap, like the skills to make that step, and everything then is just scary, and it's a frightening world. But if we can teach that little step, then yeah, imagine that on scale, like how miraculous the world would be if people just take those leaps.
schools are in a perfect place. You've got the crowd, you've got the people there that you can practice in front of and things like that. But equally, schools also have bullying, and
Yeah.
things go wrong, it turns horribly wrong. So I get it from both sides. So yeah, just coming back to you then, like you had a job, lost a job in sales.
Yeah, made redundant after 9 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Then did you get another job or?
Got another job, yeah. So this was in Aylesbury at the time where I grew up, and then I can't remember how I found the job. It must have been job site or something like that. I was just eagerly searching for something because my parents were like, rent's due, and we kind of had an agreement that if my rent would go into a pot that would allow me to move out, but I would manage all of my own stuff. So my own washing, my own food, I'd buy my own food and do everything. Yeah. So I had to be self-sufficient and learn how to live by myself, basically.
I mean, that's quite a tough one as well, like buying food and things, because it's easier just to buy bulk 3 or 4 people than it is to buy for one.
Yeah, I guess it was like the principle. It was like, I for the most part, like, managed my own washing and washed up my own stuff. Like, I had to kind of basically learn how to be self-sufficient from the age of 18. Like, if you've got a full-time job, then this is your life now. And I think that held me in pretty good stead. And it was tough, and I didn't necessarily do it all the time. Like, mum and dad were there to help, mainly mum. And yeah, it was just like, yeah, it was the same for my sister. We had to learn how to get by and live like adults. And obviously there was challenges, and they were sensitive around it because I'd been through some experiences, and I had, I'd been in a hospital and a variety of things, so they were sensitive around it. But at the same time, there was an emphasis on standing on your own 2 feet.
Does that like affect your relationship?
Me and my mum are really close. We're very close. Sister works for Arthur Ellis, so we're really close as well. And I think that me and my sister, we moved out quite quickly. So I after getting made redundant from the first salaried job, found a job in Milton Keynes. So I travelled, like 50 minutes in the commute in the morning, in the afternoon, and so I did that for about 18 months, and then I was able to move out. And me and my sister moved out quite close together. So there must have been a period of about 4 months in between us both moving out, which I think hit my mum quite hard. But yeah, we were both not eager to leave the family home, but I think we got ready to move out because we were encouraged to be so self-sufficient. We learnt that we can do this, and we sort of like eagerly wanted to get out of the family home as quick as we could and be our own.
Family home is more, you start your own adventure.
Yeah.
So more of like a excitement, jumping out to whatever you are doing then.
Mm.
So I guess you've left home, you got the job. What made you start Arthur Ellis then?
So once I moved out, the main hobby that I had was drinking alcohol. So I'd been in hospital. I had grown up with issues. Didn't really know growing up that I had issues, but I did. When I was sort of unleashed and not monitored by parents and looked after, I fell into a load of bad habits, and drinking was one of them. And it was to kind of suppress how I was feeling. I was lonely, and I was living by myself. There was no judgment from anybody living with me. So and even though I'd been in hospital, I'd been to the GP when I was 16, and I was on antidepressants from a young age, and all of this sort of stuff, I'd never really received any therapy. It was like, take these tablets, crack on, and get a job. Like, that's not what people told me, but that was kind of the message that was received. And I'd never really dealt with anything that had happened to me when I was 5, or that I'd been through growing up, or the bullying, or whatever else. So I was suppressing all of that to work, and I didn't want to lose my job again. So I started drinking really heavily. And you're talking probably a litre bottle of spirits a day kind of level. Moved out, I was like 22 when I finally moved out. By the age of 24, I had a doctor's appointment, and they gave me a year to live because I was just drinking so heavily and living a really awful lifestyle. So I had a partner at the time, and I was going to the gym a lot and doing all of the stuff to make you look healthy, I guess, like aesthetically healthy. And then, but behind the scenes, I was still drinking a lot and doing all this other stuff. So I got given a year to live, and I upped my gym. So I just decided, right, I need to stop drinking. That's been made very clear by serious medical professionals. I can't hide this anymore.
Does that like
Depends how much you care about yourself. I didn't see it as an issue at the time because I didn't care, and there's no motivation to change. If anything, you think, right, I've got a year that I can drink until I've got to stop. So you kind of think, right, I've got, that gives me a year to sort my life out rather than doing it on day one. So I carried on dabbling in alcohol a little bit. I had to have blood tests every 6 months. So I was quite closely monitored. But I found the gym, and I found sort of exercise. One thing that my mum taught me when I was younger was when she was invited to the doctors after my first attempt, we started running together. So we would run just like a mile a day, like less than half an hour in total, like something really simple, to the end of the road and back. That was all it was. And I just started picking that stuff up again, and started going to the gym more. And I went to this like burly men's gym, proper iron smell, and it smelled like blood, and it was manly, and it was men everywhere, and there was manly, and people in the mirror flexing their pecs and all of this stuff. And long story short, I ended up slipping a couple of discs in my back from doing a squat. And that was quite a pivotal moment, because I was taken to hospital, and I was put on like morphine, and for about 9 months I was on tramadol and a variety of different pretty intense pain meds and other medications. And my mental health span out. I was not in pain whatsoever, but I started decorating the bathroom at 3 a.m. I tried to run a marathon in the wee hours of the morning without telling anyone, and I ended up being a missing person because marathon took a long time. I didn't have my phone on me or anything. So I started behaving really strangely on these medications. And my partner at the time was like making notes about how I was acting and the stuff I was getting up to. And she said, like, oh, you should really go see someone about this. And I just thought that I'd been depressed, like, from a young age. But this was a whole other story. Like, I was starting businesses, I was thinking up new ideas, I wasn't finishing any projects, and doing all sorts of really erratic things. And went to my doctors and was referred to sort of more specialist therapies teams and things like that. About NHS waiting times. About 4 years into that referral, without hearing anything, I decided that it was getting a bit much, and I went to the Priory. If you've heard of the Priory, it's everywhere. Big private clinic. Celebrities usually go there for rehab and stuff. But I was looking for like private help, because I just needed to figure out what was going on, because I'd gone from running around trying to do marathons at 2 a.m. and smashing my bathroom up at 3 a.m. and starting businesses or coming up with ideas that are going to make me rich and famous and all of this stuff. And sort of 9 months later, I had maggots growing out my kitchen because I wasn't cleaning anything, and I was so cripplingly depressed. And there was this massive contrast to my life all the time. And I was calling the doctor, trying to chase this referral. 4 years in, no progress. So I ended up finding this institute, not institute, that's the wrong word for it, but this private clinic called the Priory. And the Priory do all sorts. They're all over the country. They're very expensive, but I had enough saved up for 1 hour. So it was £400 for the hour. And it was over in Oxford. It was sitting down with a psychiatrist to talk through life history, everything that I'd been experiencing. And in that appointment, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and PTSD, and everything kind of clicked into place. And that kind of was, to get back long-winded to your original question, that's kind of what started Arthur Ellis, because I'd seen the ineffectiveness of how public services operate and the length of time that it takes. And that's no fault of their own. It's just the sheer amount of people needing help. There's 2 million people on a waiting list at the minute for mental health. So it's nothing to do with, it's not their fault. It's just the way that it's set up. So, and then I had this experience of a private setting, and I was like, we need to make this private stuff loads more accessible, because it's incredible. Like the receptionist, Piers, he had a psychology degree. So he was so informative. He was helpful. I was able to talk to him, and when I went to this appointment, they offered me a coffee. I don't know if you've ever been to the NHS and been offered a coffee in your appointment, but it's just small things like that that made me feel more comfortable and changed my whole perception of getting help in the first place. Like, it's available, it's there, it's actually useful. And on the way back from that appointment, I set up Arthur Ellis. So that was when I was about 26. Not in the car or anything. I waited till I got home. But I decided at a traffic light in Oxford that I needed to quit my job in sales. I needed to set something else up. I needed to take steps to figure out, how do we not just educate people in mental health, but how do we improve the systems that are surrounding it? So that's where, that was the pivotal moment for me to set up and get into business.
Were you scared? You're saying coming back, quit your job, set up a new charity, or I guess you didn't know it was a charity at the time.
At the time, it was a business, a private business.
Essentially, you're coming back going, right, let's set up a new business, not really being done.
Was I scared? I don't think so, because it was so clear and it was so necessary. Like, at the time, it wasn't meant to be a one-to-one service. Now we operate a one-to-one service, but at the time it was just, I need to get out there and educate people. So to begin with, I recruited, because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I'm not a therapist or anything like that. So I didn't feel like I could go out there and talk about therapeutic things. So I enlisted the help of like 9 different professionals. I just put an advert out on Indeed, I think it was, like a free advert. And I had counselors responding. I had psychotherapists and occupational therapists and stuff reaching out, saying like, we want to help you do this. So I sat down with like 9 of these different professionals, and we designed workshops that would simulate things like anxiety and depression. So we came up with like the Great Depression games, which was simple games, but they had a handicap, and it would teach people, or we would explore, like, if the team with the handicap would give up more readily, and they would feel less enthused about the task. And it would kind of demonstrate to people that these things are genuinely real. And this was 8 years ago. So this was kind of at the beginning of awareness, especially workplace awareness into these sorts of things. So and the anxiety simulation was, let's all do star jumps and stuff. Put your thumbs in your ears and try and breathe through your nose. So it enlisted like panic around, like, can I catch my breath? But also self-consciousness around, can other people hear me breathing? And all of these different things. With your thumbs in your ears, you get a real thud from your pulse if your heart rate's up. So I would go around the country doing these simulations, workshops, just to try and get by. And I didn't charge nearly enough, so I didn't really get by. And because I didn't have an investment or anything like that, it was just off my own back. Let's go and do it. So it got to my last. I had some P left, and I sold my living room coffee table and all the DVDs in it, and it was used DVDs at the time. So I went to CEX, traded in all my DVDs, had 57p left on my coffee table. With that money, I bought petrol to put in my car. And then I drove to Bedford to see a client, and I got a 15 grand contract to go around the country delivering these workshops to all of their staff. And that kind of, that was there was another pivotal moment, I guess, of our survival.
Were you aware of that 15 grand?
No, it was kind of out of the blue. Yeah, it was just, went for a meeting, had a conversation with them about what challenges that they're facing and that they wanted to raise this awareness. They felt like I was the person that would help. That's just what the price came out to be, and they accepted. Yeah, it was like, you can do it. Like, it was a real confidence boost. It was I was just grateful. And I think that it just proved that there was something in it and that I have something to pursue here.
It actually gives you confidence that you have a business,
Yeah.
not just you going around doing this stuff. Somebody else believes in it.
And it was also petrifying because now I've signed up to drive around the entire country in my Vauxhall Corsa, delivering these things to hundreds of people at a time. So from not really talking on the phone to being from when I was 18 to now I've signed up to speaking to multiple, tens of people in a workshop, in a room, and laying myself bare to them. It was scary, it's very vulnerable. It's very got to expose yourself to a degree emotionally. But it was survival. So it was a case that I've got to do this and I've got to show up and I've got to be on time and I've got to make the 4-hour drive to Yeovil. I've got to be there on time and I've got to deliver and be enthusiastic. And it's that mask again, right? But it was a different type of mask because it was a mask to be vulnerable. It was I'm bubbly and all of this sort of stuff and I'm presenting, but I'm presenting the reality of what life is like. So it's different.
Essentially, you're showing your vulnerabilities at that point. And what does that do? Like, I guess driving somewhere, complete strangers, and just showing vulnerability.
You've still got all of the general tasks of presenting. So getting people on board with you, taking them along with the journey and having clarity, having a process to the workshop. So having a start, middle, end. So, but with content that you're very vulnerable about. So it was exhausting. And driving back, you'd kind of experience these come downs afterwards. You'd be really elevated with people enjoying themselves and people having a good time, because I didn't want workshops that we did to be doom and gloom and to be a depressing story, basically. And there's a place for that, and they can be uplifting and they can be inspirational, but I wanted it to be action based because that's what I needed at the time. It was, I know what I'm living. I know what I'm experiencing because I'm experiencing it. I need someone to tell me what to do. And that's why I enlisted the help of all those professionals to kind of normalize, not necessarily normalize depression, but normalize the tools that help with the depression. So it was very action based, and it was quite, it was tiring. It was the most draining thing I've experienced because it was so emotional. So I would get all the nerves and stuff on the drive down and when I'm driving around, because there's not just nerves about being on time and looking right and making sure your shirt's ironed and all of that sort of stuff, but all those like sort of basic fundamentals. But there's also then the nerves around, do I know the content? Do I know the order? Do I know how to throw in a joke here and there to like get people on board? Because majority of the time, especially in this contract, it was like grown men who were employed by this company that I had to speak to about vulnerability, and so I had to get them on board. So there was all of these things on the run up to it that you got to think about. And then once it's done, you can breathe and you're on a come down because it's just so emotionally draining.
Just on that, you said like grown men
Mm.
on this, and you're showing vulnerability. How many of them do you think opened up and showed vulnerability themselves? Because I said that.
It was rare for them not to. So especially like in the break when we'd be outside and having some fresh air, and people would come up to me talking about how their friend had killed themselves, and or that they'd had trouble with partners or whatever. And that's where it kind of took a bit of a step change for me because I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't expecting people to be so open because you're told that they're not going to be. but they are if you give them a platform to. And that's where like access to the therapies and all of that sort of stuff started becoming so important, because it was like people will talk. The awareness is working. Like mental health awareness is doing its job, and people are aware, but they just don't have anywhere to go. So after a couple of years of delivering these workshops and stuff around the country for different companies, we put the money into hiring somebody with a therapeutic background in order to start seeing people one-to-one. Because I was a volunteer throughout this part. I was a volunteer for Arthur Ellis for the first 5 years. So all the money that we got from that contract and all that sort of stuff, I just put back into the business for 5 years. That was hard.
How do you live then?
So one of the impulsive things, like bipolar, you can be impulsive sometimes. So on a lunch break once, I bought 3 houses on a telephone auction, and didn't have the money to do that, but I was in it for about 60 grand. So I had to remortgage my current house in order to pay for those. And then I had 4 houses. So I rented them, and that gave me an income. It wasn't a massive income, but it got me through. And there were certain days in the first few years of Arthur Ellis that I would be in the line at the food bank, and I'd be at community fridges getting loaves of bread and all of that sort of stuff. Like Wolverton community fridge saved my bacon a lot of times. So when we were in that West and stuff like that, I would leave like this entrepreneur accelerator. I would leave the entrepreneur accelerator, go to the community fridge, get dinner, and yeah, because the majority of the rent that I had incoming would just go out again as mortgages and cover my bills. So I didn't have enough to buy food and luxuries or anything like that. I would get hand-me-downs, clothes from my uncle. So yeah, it was the first 5 years was a battle to make sure that we're reinvesting everything that we can into the organisation.
Family members, and then one of my friends also got diagnosed with bipolar. Me being naive or sheltered, I don't know how you want to put it, but I was under the impression bipolar is like, split personality. It's not, is it?
No, it's like it's an inability to control your moods. So the way that it was described to me by a nurse was, if the normal range of experience for somebody is +1 and -1, so -1 being your worst day ever, +1 being the best day you could ever have, wedding day or whatever, my brain is just unlocked to go to +3 and -3. So when I experience depression, not to say that it's worse than anyone else's experience, we all have our own experience, and but my depression would probably, what I've come to learn is, in order to be depressed, you need to have 5 out of like 16 symptoms. So you need to have, the way that it will be assessed is you need to have like societal or social symptoms, physical symptoms, and biological symptoms, something like that. So it's kind of categorized. So in order to be considered to have depression rather than just being a bit sad, you need to have symptoms in these different areas, and you need to have at least 5. My depression, I'd be experiencing all 16 at once. So it could just be, it's a bit more intense. And then same goes for the happiness. So I would, rather than just being happy, I would go overboard and I'd be uncontrollably laughing. I'd think I can run a marathon at 2 a.m. I would walk up to people thinking they really want to talk to you, but they're strangers and they're like, "Who are you?" So it's an inability to manage your moods. There's other things that go along with that, like sometimes if you are unmedicated and something happens and you're thrust to either side of that spectrum, you can get things like psychosis in there and hallucinations and things like that. Like I grew up seeing and hearing things. The last time I heard something, I was actually going to an appointment for my bipolar, and there was a little girl in a room screaming to get out, and it was really distressing. But I think people confuse, or I used to confuse, like self-talk with hearing things. You know, just when you're talking to yourself in your head, I used to think that's what hearing things was, because my thoughts were so negative and I thought like I'm hearing things. But when you genuinely experience hearing something, you can't distinguish it from the truth. So yeah, I've learned a lot about bipolar, but I'm still learning how to manage it myself, really. But yeah, it just kind of, the best way that I can describe it is that it unlocks your experience of life for good and bad. Yeah.
Like suddenly you're this one person and instantly you change this other person. And that's, in my head, that's just what it was.
No, yeah. People, yeah, and there's this, I hear it all the time about people being called bipolar because they have mood swings and stuff like that, and it's quite flippant, and it doesn't annoy me, but it's not the way it works. It's my, you know, depression's ranked. Like if someone's got chronic depression, it's the same level of disability as a broken back. It impacts about 80% of your life. So that was in a workshop that I went to a long time ago with St. John's Ambulance, and it can be that debilitating. So for me, my depression phases can last up to like 18 months. So I'll be in a mood for 18 months, and then I'll snap out of it one day and I'll be elevated for 3 months, 6 months, until something brings me back down. So it's not kind of like a day in, day out thing. It's kind of like you get into a phase for a period of time. There's different types of bipolar. So I'm type 1, which means that I'm elevated majority of the time and I need to be brought down. Otherwise I make bad choices and don't sleep and do all sorts. So I have to be brought down, but there's bipolar type 2, which is often someone's more low, someone's like sort of depressed for a long period of time, and then they might have an experience in their life that takes them really high. And then you get things like cyclothymia, which is like rapid cycling. And I think rapid cycling means that you just have to have a depressive state and an elevated state once in a year. So it could be 6 months of one, 6 months of the other, or whatever. So it's not kind of how someone wakes up in the morning that day. Things can, you're still human, so things can still impact how you feel on that day, and you might overall be really depressed but have a good day. Like that can still happen, and you can still be in a good mood even though underneath you're really depressed. And that's not necessarily masking, that's just that person having a good day. So yeah, but the phases can last for a long period of time.
I guess on this, I have this conversation with a few people. What I struggle with, and again, me being naive, is mental health getting worse, or is it being diagnosed more? Because the reality is, like, if I go back to my parents, my grandparents, it was just, shunned off or whatever it was. Is that more common now with younger people, or is it because it's being recognised more, do you think?
I think it's both. The services are really, really good at dealing with what's in front of them, and if you've got a broken leg, fixed. Like, not to say it's okay, but you're going to be okay, off you go. Anything to do with lifestyle change or long-term change, the services aren't sort of great at picking that up or supporting it. And I don't think that's necessarily a shock to people. So mental health often requires a lot of lifestyle change. It requires a lot of input. It requires a long-term input to make change. So that's why we've got 2 million people sat on a mental health waiting list, because that therapy and that long-term input isn't necessarily readily available. So that's what people want. That's what they need. But what they're getting is a diagnosis and then put onto a waiting list. So diagnoses are going up because it's relatively simple to diagnose people with a mental health condition. But at the same time, if you look at how the world has changed, we're a lot less connected to our communities. we're a lot more connected to technology. Society is changing to the degree that I don't think we've got a lot to look forward to. Not to be too glum about it, but a lot of the negative things are highlighted to us more readily, and that's readily available. So, what have kids got to look forward to? Like climate change and digital IDs. Brilliant. So what messages are we putting out there, and what messages are available to people? And negativity is available from a much younger age.
I mean, no denying social medias have already come out, and negativity is what works in the algorithm, because we sit on it, we watch it, so they keep feeding it because that's better than positivity.
Yeah, well, you're more likely to leave a negative review than a positive one. Your social injustice and things like that are massive motivators. They're massive drivers, and people as well on social media have this inherent. The way that social media works is that it's like one-upmanship. You have to do better than your last time and then someone else's last time. So you've got to perform, and it's like people wearing those masks again, isn't it? So we've got to put masks on all the time, and we've got to fake it, and we've got to pretend and be someone else. And we are losing touch with who we are fundamentally. And it's frightening.
Partly why I wanted to build this was, from the outside, again, I didn't know half of this about you. And we were on the NatWest course together, like, probably saw you every couple of days.
Mm.
You were doing your thing, I was doing mine. But from the outside, it looks like you're doing great. It looks like everything's going perfectly. You're living this flashy lifestyle, but going to awards or doing all these fancy things. And I wanted to try and build this to show that actually life isn't up there. Business owners aren't just smashing it, having it easy, jet skis, holidays, all that flashy stuff that you get to do as a business owner that looks incredible. But the reality is, you just said that you went to the food bank and stuff whilst getting it going. You didn't earn for the first 5 years. That's crazy. So that's why we're trying to build a podcast, to try and give that back and show that it's a tough world, but equally it is rewarding as well. So I guess on that note, what would you say has been your biggest failure?
Biggest failure. I'm very critical about everything. So I see a lot of things as a failure. I think one of my biggest, this is going to sound really bad, but probably growing too quick. We're going through growing pains right now. And we went from, I was probably too eager to grow, rather than saying, let's pump the brakes, and maybe greediness. But the empath in me wanted to help as many people as possible. Still does. But there's a way to go about that. So we went from having 0 to 400 referrals in a year. And then it was 1,400 referrals, 2,500. And this year we're looking at about 3,500 people that we'll support in the one-to-one service. So for the last year, we've pumped the brakes, and we've kind of taken a step back, and we've got to work on the organization, because we can't just keep adding clients in without having infrastructure and without having all of these things. So I would have looked at the organization's infrastructure much sooner than right now. That's probably one of the biggest failings. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
wait another year.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're growing, then recognize that you're going to need infrastructure to support the future growth.
Business isn't the same as it was. Yeah, it's not the same as it was last year.
Yeah.
Before, like, if you're growing, you need different tools. You need a different infrastructure, as you said. So on the flip of that, what's been your biggest success?
I know what it is, but I can't talk about it without crying often. So we started our one-to-one service 6 months before COVID hit, and now, like I said, there's like, at any one time we're actively supporting 1,000 people in our one-to-one service, and I don't see them. I purposefully stay away because I emotionally can't cope. But we have this summer festival once a year. We put on a summer festival where kids can just come and play and be themselves and have fun and indirectly learn what keeps them well by just doing actively good stuff. And I was there and I had a little tug on the back of my t-shirt, and I turned around and there was this little 10-year-old girl, and she just said thank you and she ran off. And it turns out that she, two years before then, was raped, and there was nowhere else for her to go apart from our service. And that summer festival was the first day that she'd left her house in 2 years. And she felt okay enough to run up to a strange man in a park and thank him. So that sticks with me.
But that's pretty incredible that you've been able to do that. I mean, that is quite a success as well.
Well,
One.
That's one person we've helped, and I think that sort of in the darkest times, because it's not easy. Like, nothing's easy about running an organization, and there are good moments. Don't get me wrong, but majority are bad. And like I said, I get cripplingly depressed. So in like the darkest moments, she's the one that I think about.
We get things like this all the time, and you get people coming to you, or you're seen as this person to go to. Is that like a heavy burden on you?
It's not a burden. I think when people talk about burdens, no, you haven't. No, you've worded it right, because it's the right way to look at it. But I think if people don't often reach out because they think they're going to be a burden, but I tend to say, if I wanted to reach out to you, would I be a burden on you? And if I think I enjoy it when people talk to me about stuff, but I can't do a lot to help. And that I find personally frustrating. Like, I wish I could solve everything. I did like one of these personality tests ages and ages ago, and my one key personality trait is restorative. I'm a restorative person, meaning I like to fix everything. So if somebody comes up to me with an issue, I want to solve it, and it gets frustrating to me that I can't solve it there and then all the time. That's tough. Probably does, yeah. Like, I think childhoods shape us, right? And I think that everything throughout my life has led me to do what I'm doing now. I'm a believer of that.
So, I mean, there's a few different channels I can go.
Are you all right? Sorry, it's probably quite a heavy podcast.
Good. It's eye-opening, and that's exactly it. I will go. Let's look to AI. Essentially, I'd say, me personally, I'm a tech geek. I love technology, and without going into doom and gloom, because we could go into that and what the future looks like and how worrying it is for kids to trying to find a job when AI is taking over them. But is AI having an impact on you?
We are using it in a positive way. So we have an AI assistant that is used to help our team with safeguarding. So we've put in all of our safeguarding procedures, policies, who to go to, all of that sort of stuff. And we've got this like AI navigator that helps people, because some safeguarding issues are so complex. Some of them are historic, some of them are to do with abuse and very complex topics. So we're using AI to help navigate our team to deal with it in the right way as per our policies and all that sort of stuff. So I've seen some really good things that AI can do. AI from a therapeutic perspective, I think may have an impact on us. I've used an AI chatbot to ask me, what do I do in this situation? Or why do I feel so sad? And all of those sorts of things. But out of the rise in AI, I think that humans will crave humans. I think we're already starting to see that, where we are looking to reconnect, and we're looking to not just reconnect with each other, but we're looking to reconnect on a, not to sound too wishy-washy, but like to nature and to all of these things. I'm seeing that in young people, which I think is a real bright moment for us that we should not shy away from, and we should grasp it and encourage it.
So that's quite reassuring, because I think we've gone through almost a stage where kids didn't go out, they didn't connect. COVID, obviously we couldn't. And it kind of shut people in their four walls, and that was it. So the fact that we almost want to reconnect sounds us positive. Absolutely, I'd say I've tried to talk to quite a few young people to understand what they're looking for and things. And it's a scary place. Like some are just saying, I want to work from home for the rest of my life. I don't want to go out. I don't want to see anyone. And I think that's scary that's in someone's head that that's what they want to do. But if you're seeing people that are wanting to connect, that's incredible.
Yeah, there was this, I know it's miraculous, but there was a trend. I think it was on TikTok or something. I don't have social media, really. I've LinkedIn, but everything else I ignore. But there was this trend on TikTok called like silent walking or something. And it was this miraculous new thing of going for a walk without headphones in, just to listen to what's going on out there. And so I think that being a human being is going to make a comeback.
That's good. That's reassuring.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
So at the end of every episode, I don't know if you've seen the Diary of the CEO.
I have.
At the end of the episodes, what they do is they ask questions. So I actually have a list of their questions here.
Okay.
And we choose one each and ask each other.
Pick any card. Oh, I've got a long one.
And then I'll ask you one.
Okay. Do you want me to ask you first?
Yeah, no.
Is there something right now that you're doing wrong but you haven't fixed yet? If so, how will you get unstuck? And how will you get unstuck?
That's a tough one. I do this quite a lot. I've done 48 episodes or 50 episodes now. That these things come up and I'm constantly doing stuff on the back of it. So there was stuff like family and stuff like that I'd almost buried and ignored. Whereas I think I've really drastically changed as a person in the last few years.
Wow, good.
Something that I'm doing really wrong? No, like genuinely, it sounds probably quite arrogant that I'm like, yeah, I'm doing everything right. I'll go with it. I don't think it's a.
Congratulations.
I'll tell you how much I get frustrated. Like get home and she's like, not put her plates away and stuff like that. Is that fair? Like she's barely sleeping at night. She can't get comfortable. The fact that she's left plate, a knife and fork on the side and I've got to put it in the dishwasher isn't enough. I guess at the moment I go home and you do it. Like, can you not just do that? Like it takes 30 seconds. And almost, why am I even getting worked up by it?
I'm sure there's things you do too.
Oh, absolutely. I'm probably really frustrated to live. That's probably the best I can think of that I need to change at the moment and just relax.
So it's reframing it in your own mind.
Yeah, possibly. Which again, I feel like is a bit of a cop-out answer for that.
It's an answer.
It's the best I can do at the moment. So tell a specific story of someone in your life who helped make you into the person you are today, and what did they do?
Crikey. So I mentioned earlier on about going running with my mum. So from a young age, she knew I was struggling. She knew something wasn't right. She was a teacher, so she worked with kids. She's incredible with kids still. So she got me into running, and that was a lifesaver, really. So I would probably put it down to that. One thing that she did teach me, and I wouldn't have learnt this if I'd been taught running by a man, but is to run always with a key in between your fingers, just in case anyone attacks you. And I think that certainly from a male-female perspective, to have been taught like something like that from a female and to understand that I would have never been taught that from a man's perspective helps me to see things from different people's perspectives. And I've always found that quite an interesting learning point. And you can learn things from men, you can learn things from women, you can learn things from anybody. But that taking different perspectives and understanding different perspectives is quite key to understanding the truth of what's going on.
Impressive one. I like it.
Just off the top of my head.
Okay, brilliant. Was there anything you expected me to ask you though?
No, I didn't really know what to expect, but it's been a nice conversation.
Thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.